What is going on, proxies, polychrome farmers, and gacha gamblers? We finally got the most anticipated character in all of Zenless Zone Zero, and that is Fox Girl Miyabi. My name is Mikey, and today we'll be going over if you should cop or drop her in Zenless Zone Zero. So without wasting too much time, let's dive right into the video. So what exactly does Miyabi do? Well, to start off, it's important to note that Miyabi is a one-of-a-kind type unit from the Section 6 faction. Her character type is Anomaly, but what makes her so unique is the fact that her character type is actually completely different than your normal elements. Rather than your typical ice characters that we are familiar with, Miyabi has her own personal attribute called Frost, which I like to call this a sub-trim from Ice because Frost and Ice kind of do similar things, except Frost has its own unique spin to it. So adding onto her unique attribute, she applies Ice Fire. Yeah, I know. Don't look at me funny. I know fire melts ice. This is cool though. Source is, trust me, bro. The effects of Ice Fire last a total of 30 seconds, giving you lots of room to work with to build up Frost Anomaly. Ice Fire is a status that is inflicted upon your target by hitting an enemy with any Frost attack from Miyabi. Frost also has its own anomaly gauge that can be paired up with every other element in the game, ice included. Although, as I mentioned before, Frost is like a sub-trim of Ice and does pretty much the similar effects, making her damage output being able to go to unimaginable heights with disorders, team synergies, and rotations. Now, let's talk about her combat in an investment point of view. Just to retouch on her character type, Miyabi is a Frost character, which in itself is its own element and a one-of-a-kind element at that. It has similar effects to the ice element, meaning you can freeze and shatter your enemies, which in my opinion is one of the best debuffs in the entire game, because not only does it keep enemies from actually being able to attack you, but also at the same time it deals an absurd amount of damage. So now you got a unique element with some of the best debuffs you can possibly ask for while playing Zenless Zone Zero. Miyabi's basic attack is a total of 5 hits, the first 2 being physical and the last 3 dealing the ice burn state that we were just talking about earlier, or to make it simpler, we could just call it frost damage. This is actually very strong. Also, because I did forget to mention that the 5th attack also blocks incoming attacks, rendering you invincible. Once you fully build up that anomaly, you will do what is called a frost burn. Frost burn also gives you a 15% more anomaly buildup once it is applied to the enemy, which is very strong for Miyabi's kit as well. The next part that I'm going to go over in Miyabi's kit is the fact that you can hold your attack button in place to perform Miyabi's charge mechanic, which is one of my personal favorite parts of Miyabi's kit because not only does it send out a burst of damage, but it also makes you invincible for a split second, much like Miyabi's 5th basic attack. Typically, what you want to do though when you're using her charge mechanic is swap into another character to give other characters on your team some field time depending on which characters you are using on your team. Or in other words, you can call this mechanic swap canceling for those of you who are pro hardcore gamers and know terminology terms. I hope that makes sense because I think it does. Although when you are running Miyabi, she will definitely be on the field for most of the time as your main character. It is also important to note that there are a total of 3 levels in which you can deal this burst hold attack at. These little ball icons in the top left corner of the screen under your Miyabi picture is called stacks. Always should properly refer to these stacks as fallen frost stacks. The first burst is going to be used with 2 points of fallen frost stacks. The second burst will be used with 4 points of fallen frost stacks. And finally, the third and final burst will be used with a maximum of 6 points of fallen frost stacks. So those are the 3 different levels where you can use this burst attack. Next up on Miyabi's kit is going to be her skill, which allows her to dash forward into the enemy and also places you behind them or in front of them depending on where you are located while fighting the enemy. Another important thing to note and a cool thing about Miyabi's skill is that she is able to instantly use her frost attacks and it skips over her physical ones. So for example, Miyabi's first 2 basic attacks are normal physical attacks and the next 3 are frost attacks. When using your skill, basically ignoring the 2 physical attacks at the beginning of her combo. Now let me just go off the record and say that this attack looks something straight out of an anime where the character doesn't look like they move, and you guys know exactly what I'm talking about with those bad anime scenes where the anime character does something really crazy where they don't move an inch but completely chop up the enemy. Like, it's absolutely wild. OG anime fans know which type of animes I am talking about. Y'all don't need me to dive too deep into it. Last up, we got Miyabi's ultimate, which dishes out a burst of high damage. And another important thing to know is that Miyabi receives a 30% ice damage buff for 12 seconds after her ultimate is popped, which in an action type game, 12 seconds is a lot of time to get some extra damage in. Also, another important thing to know is that Miyabi not only deals just an absurd amount of damage, but she's not restricted to a single target type of damage. Miyabi also deals AoE damage because of how much her sword actually covers ground. Yeah, so all in all, let's be real here. Miyabi is just straight up cracked. Her kit is literally out of this world. I mean, what would you expect from a Void Hunter? A mid unit? Nah, miss me with that. For those of you who are new to my channel, I am currently playing Zenless Zone Zero free to play. For purposes of my bank account resting in peace with a lot of other gacha games that have stacked accounts with gacha gambled characters attached to them. Anyways, as I mentioned, I am free to play, so I'm going to be giving you my perspective because I feel like it would be most critical. Personally, I will be summoned for Miyabi. She's quite frankly a must summon. Now, I do not just scale free to play play personally on how good a character is or how much value that character provides to your team. I am a bit odd in that sense. We should also scale Miyabi on how fun she is. Miyabi looks like an extremely fun character to play on the outside looking in, and that's a big selling point for me if I'm going to be honest. I watched a couple of other content creators because I am not in the test servers, although I wish I was, wink wink, before I was able to actually play Miyabi. As soon as I saw the gameplay Miyabi, it was so over, bro. I never just wanted to start playing a character on Zenless Zone Zero off the rip since Jane Doe. She looks very fluid, the combat looks clean, and her moveset is very entertaining and satisfying. Now for the facts. As I mentioned before, Miyabi is a one-of-a-kind unit, the first of her class. On top of that, she is, in my opinion, one of the most versatile units to actually obtain as a DPS unit. She's able to fit into multiple teams pretty well and coexist with a lot of other S-ranked characters in the game. Considering a lot of the recent limited time characters are Anomaly, and Anomaly characters work really well with Miyabi, and on that topic of Miyabi being super versatile, there are so many characters you can pair her up with, mainly because of the fact that you can pair up Miyabi with any support character or anybody from Section 6, which is exactly what I mean by her versatility. I won't get into team comps you can run, but you can run characters like Burnus and Yanagi as an Anomaly slot 2 character, then Lucy or Sakaku as a third and slot support character. You can also run stun characters instead like Lycan, Chingy, or Lighter. There's just so many options of characters you can use to synergize with Miyabi. It is actually crazy. If I lose my 50-50, Zenless Zone Zero is actually getting uninstalled, bro. I swear. I'm telling you guys right now, she's worth all the polychrome on your account currently, even as a free-to-play player. It is quite literally a bad move on your part if you are playing this game and decide to give up on attempting for Miyabi. Even if you do lose your 50-50, I would recommend trying your best to scrape up some extra pity polychrome and still go for her anyways. Or if you have to break your bank account, then, you know, it is what it is. I would say the only negative thing about going for Miyabi is that there is only a limited amount of W engines that you can actually obtain for Miyabi. With the limited amount of options, you're gonna have to really consider actually going for a W engine, which could be a make or break deal. However, on the flip side though, it is seriously really good on your account if you end up with a character and the W engine this time around. Now, if you are a meta player, speaking on team building aspects of this game, players will argue that we are in a crit focused meta, while other players will argue at the same time that we're in an anomaly focused meta. Yes, I know, meta this, meta that. You just want your Fox Girl waifu, I get it, but let me explain. Miyabi actually can insert herself within both types of teams. Just touching up on the topic again of how versatile she is as a unit, I'd also like to back up that with the fact that if we talk in terms of all gacha gamers' favorite word, power creep, it is very safe to say, or maybe not so safe because this is not something we really want to talk about, that most good DPS characters end up getting shafted by power creep later down the line by another DPS character, which is something to think about if you're free to play.
But Mikey, you just said you should not skip Miyabi no matter what.
Now, I know this is contradicting to what I said earlier, but just hear me out. Focusing on summoning an S tier support character or even an S tier stun character, we can even say an S tier defense type character if we're gonna go that far. Let's just say anything that applies extra value to your account that is not a main damage dealer is what we like to call horizontal investment. Basically adding extra value to your account, while on the flip side, when mostly going for DPS characters, ends up with you making a vertical investment into that character by focusing on building that DPS character up to be really powerful as a standalone. It's very easy for lots of gamers to go into gacha games going for flashy characters, and I will be the first to say Miyabi is a real flashy character. The thing is, I personally feel like Miyabi is the first DPS character ever that can be a horizontal investment because of how good she is around the current roster of characters. This is also not considering the future characters that we may see in the future of Zenless Zone Zero. And that is pretty much all my thoughts about the whole free-to-play. On her value, I personally say go for it. There is really no loss here. She's easily the best DPS character to date, and that is facts. So is Miyabi a cop or drop? Does she live up to the standards that she's been produced with? Yes. Yes, she does. We are definitely full sending Miyabi. She is a must-have, and let's recap. Having her base with her W engine is ideally where you want to be, and I can imagine you will not have to switch her out of your main DPS slot for a long while. Also, in the new update of 1.4 Zenless Zone Zero, there's going to be a lot of extra summons available to you at your disposal. So therefore, what do you really got to lose if you're being given extra free summons? I would also like to mention it is going to be extremely hard to power creep her as a character because the two main metas, as we mentioned before, can be built around her. So her value skyrockets, although it is better to invest into other support characters for the long term that will support multiple teams. But if I'm going to be honest, a lot of the support characters that are A ranked at M6 do justice, so consider those options as well. Her whole aesthetic as a character when it comes to how fast she is and how the gameplay feels when you play it is totally a 10 out of 10. I would also like to mention you get a free S tier character, Harumasa, who can actually be paired with Miyabi as well, and that is because he is a part of Section 6, which means you also do not have to worry about summoning another character that you could potentially miss out on. Overall, I fully think I know I have said this multiple times already, no one, and I mean no one, should be skipping this character at all, unless if you, my friend, are cooked. That is all I have for today's video. If you reached the end of this video, you should comment your thoughts, smash that like button, and while you are down there, subscribe and turn on post notifications. That way you can support me and also never miss a video. Thank you guys for watching. Peace out, guys.